mother. Akonna was cheerful and talkative.
Okada! Okada!
She screamed and waved. Sanli, who is riding his bike, stopped in front of her.
Thank you for stopping, Oga. I have been standing here for ages. These roads are so lonely,
she said, laughing. Sanli nodded, forcing a smile. As they ride, Akonna talked about her studies.
I'm studying microbiology. My dream is to open a clinic in my village one day. My mama always says education is the key to a better life.
Sanli's heart sank for a moment, but his greed overshadowed his guilt. When they reached a quiet spot of the road, he pulled out the handkerchief.
What's that?
Akonna asked, looking over Sanli's shoulder.
Just cleaning my face.
Sanli lied, shaking the handkerchief. Akonna's head dropped, and she slumped towards Sanli's shoulder. Sanli carried her into the forest as he prepared his tools to start cutting. Once upon a time, in a quiet village in northern Nigeria, Sanli was known as a hard-working but troubled man. He had 6 wives, each of them with their own distinct personality, and 15 children who ran barefoot around their humble home. Sanli's only source of income was his Okada riding business, where he carried passengers on his motorcycle for a small fee. Every evening, Sanli would return home to the chaos of his large family. His youngest wife, Zara, who always complained the loudest.
Sanli, how do you expect me to feed these children with this little money? Look at your first wife, Haiwa. Her children eat better than mine. Please give me more money.
Haiwa, the eldest and the most dignified of the wives, would now scoff.
Don't blame me for managing the little we have. If only that you spent lesser time gossiping with neighbors, maybe you would have learned something new on how to manage.
Sanli would sit in a corner, head in his hands, as the women argued. His children would tug at his shirt, begging for sweets or new clothes.
Baba, can I have shoes like Omar down the street?
One of the boys asked, holding up his worn-out sandals. Sanli's heart broke a little. Every day, he knew he wasn't providing enough, but what could he do? His Okada business barely made ends meet. So one fateful night, as he sat by his motorcycle under a street lamp, an old man approached him. The man had a cropped back, and his eyes that seemed to pierce through Sanli's soul.
You looked troubled, my son,
the old man said. Sanli hesitated, but then poured out his worries.
I have 6 wives, 15 children, and not enough money to care for them. I work from sunrise to sunset, but it's never enough.
The old man nodded slowly, then reached into his robe and pulled out a handkerchief. It shimmered faintly in the dim light.
This is no ordinary handkerchief,
he said.
Shake it in front of anyone you carry it in your motorcycle, and they will forget themselves. Take them wherever you wish, and they won't resist.
Sanli's eyes widened.
What do you mean? What will I do with them?
The old man leaned closer, his voice barely a whisper.
There are people, wealthy people, who pay a fortune for certain services. Use this wisely, and your poverty will be a thing of the past.
Sanli was shocked, his hands trembling, but he eventually took the handkerchief from the old man.
What do I owe you?
He asked.
Just remember,
The old man said.
everything has a price.
Sanli was confused as he kept on staring at the old man, walked away into a dizzy, misty forest. The next morning, Sanli tried to shake off the encounter, but his desperation got the better decision of him. That day, he picked up a young trader carrying a basket of goods. Halfway to the trader's destination, Sanli pulled out the handkerchief, shook it, and watched as the man slumped forward at his back. Sanli's hands trembled as he drove the man deep into the forest. When he reached a secluded spot, he did the unthinkable. Sanli used his slaughtering tools and chopped the trader into pieces, packaged his purse in a sack, and head over to the client who needed it. The money he received from his art was more than he would ever seen in his life. Over the weeks, Sanli became bolder. He carried passengers into the forest and performed his grim deeds. Meanwhile, before I continue with the story, I want to thank all my subscribers for their love and support. And if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much. And for my returning viewers, hey, please try and subscribe to my little channel, like and share. Thank you. Now, let's get back to our story. And so the path to wealthy buyers. His earnings grew massively. He bought a huge mansion in his village, complete with sparkling tiles and the golden gate. His wives were overjoyed.
Sanli, look at this house. You have outdone yourself. I'm so proud of you, my husband.
Binta exclaimed as she spun around in her new dress.
Finally, we are eating like kings,
Shouted Amina, the third wife, as she served rich stew into a bowl. Sanli's children boasted to their friends, showing off their new clothes and toy. The villagers whispered among themselves.
How did a male Okada rider become so wealthy?
One man asked.
Maybe he found an oil.
Another suggested. But Sanli's wives never questioned him. They were too caught up in their new lives, hosting parties and showing off their riches. Sanli traveled back to the city, where he rode his Okada and resumed work immediately. One day, Sanli picked up Akonna, a university student, returning home to visit her mother. Akonna was cheerful and talkative.
Okada! Okada!
She exclaimed and waved. Sanli, who is riding his bike, stopped in front of her.
Thank you for stopping, Oga. I have been standing here for ages. These roads are so lonely.
She said, laughing. Sanli nodded, forcing a smile. As they ride, Akonna talked about her studies.
I'm studying microbiology. My dream is to open a clinic in my village one day. My mama always says education is the key to a better life.
Sanli's heart sank for a moment. but his greed overshadowed his guilt. When they reached a white spot of the road, he pulled out the handkerchief.
What's that?
Akuna asked, looking over Sanli's shoulder.
Just screening my face.
Sanli lied, shaking the handkerchief. Akuna's head dropped, and she slumped towards Sanli's shoulder. Sanli carried her into the forest. As he prepared his tools to start cutting, he found himself staring at her face.
She's too beautiful to be waste.
He muttered.
Or better still, I could make her my 7th wife.
Little did he know that Akuna was awake, silently listening to his words. But she decided to pretend, as if she is under Sanli's spell, waiting for the right moment to act. For 3 days, Sanli kept Akuna in his forest hideout, feeding her and marveling at her beauty. He even began rehearsing how he would introduce her to his wives at home. But Akuna was patient enough. Akuna's mother, who is waiting for her daughter's arrival for the past 3 days, yet did not see or heard anything from her, knew that something is wrong with Akuna, and she began to pray every morning and night, asking God to preserve and protect her daughter. Akuna observed his routines, waiting for an opportunity to escape. On the 3rd night, as Sanli slept and snored loudly, she tiptoed towards the door. The crack of a floorboard woke him, and he jumped up, grabbing his cutlass.
Where do you think you're going?
He sneered. Akuna, though terrified, stood her ground.
You won't get away with this. People will find out who you really are. I promise you.
Sanli rushed her, and the two began to struggle. Akuna grabbed the blade with her bare hands, blood dripping from her palms. In chaos, Sanli stumbled, and the cutlass splashed across his chest. He fell to the ground, motionlessly. Akuna ran off as she wandered the forest for days, weak and dehydrated, but her determination kept her going. Finally, she stumbled upon a main road, where a kind driver in a beat-up van stopped to help Akuna, offering her a bottle of water as she explains her ordeal. The driver listened carefully, and he promised to take her home. Akuna's mother standing in front of their modesty home, shading her eyes from the morning sun as the van approaches. When Akuna stepped out of the van, her mother burst into tears.
Akuna, I thought I've lost you.
A tearful embrace between Akuna and her mother, with the neighbors gathering around to witness the emotional scenes. Her mother took her inside the house, bathed and fed her. Akuna sat on a mat, as her mother tending to her wounds with herbal remedies. The news spread quickly, and the mysterious disappearances in the city stopped. Sanli's family, left with no income, watched their wealth crumble. The mansion became a ghostly reminder of the cost of greed. As for Akuna, she returned back to the university, more determined than ever to achieve her dreams. Her survival became an inspiration to everyone who heard her story. The lesson of this story is: greed leads to destruction. Sanli's desire for wealth made him choose a wicked path, hunting others for his own gain. Even though he became rich and built a big house. His actions brought harm to many people. In the end, his greed and evil choices caused his downfall. The story teaches us that no matter how much we want something, taking the wrong path to get it will always end in regret and destruction. It's better to walk honestly and live a life of kindness and peace. The story also teaches us to be careful on the kind of commercial bike or motor we board in our everyday lives. The end.